You know I keep that MF thing on me. It's another one.
I know. I think last time we opened with, I keep that MF thing on me. It was one of the Marshall Pentacles, throwing them
Yeah, I
like
think so.
frisbees. Well, is it perchance the Blue Owl Lenormand deck?
It is indeed the Blue Owl Lenormand deck. Good old Blaue Eule.
But
Uh,
you gotta keep it owl themed. It is
it's
a great
true.
deck. And also, may I add, there is a purple dragon.
Hmm. Very true. I like it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think the deep lore of why I started reading Lenormand is I was like, oh, that's a cool system, but also I got the deck and started practicing because it had an owl on
Listen, that's good advertising right there.
it. Oh man.
I let it be known that I totally did actually buy you Salt. I don't know if you know this, but I actually did buy Key a steampunk Lenormand deck because of that one episode.
You did, yeah. I was like, what is this in my mailbox? Opened it up and I'm like, oh my God. It's a cool deck though.
Does it
Art
does it read
art went
okay?
hard. The card, it has that thing that some artists do where the cards are like way too large to
Hmm.
manipulate comfortably.
Hmm.
But it is very pretty. And I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I have tiny little baby hands, so even normal sized decks can be a bit of a
Mhm.
challenge for me. But I do like a Lenormand deck that is small and easy to carry in the pocket, as it were.
Yeah, 36 card because just to clarify right off the bat, when I'm saying Lenormand, I'm talking the Petite Lenormand.
Hmm.
The 36 card format that we'll talk a little bit more about the history of in a bit. But yeah, keep that MF thing on me. They're Yu-Gi-Oh sized.
They are actually Yu-Gi-Oh size. Yeah,
It's always good.
yeah.
And
And you can genuinely read them in the Exodia position.
yeah, it's true. The five card cross the classic way.
Hmm.
Running that dark magician energy, like.
Yeah, literally.
True.
Be not alarmed at the frightful howls which you may hear. It's Svinga Salt and Belgian exile key. What a twist. Everyone was waiting for a blue owl, but it's too easy.
Mhm. Yeah, we can't be too obvious with some of these bees, especially when we are talking about the life and very strange biographical history of Mademoiselle Lenormand herself,
Hmm.
um, who is a notoriously difficult figure to research due to her prolific autobiographical writing and also social commentary fiction that she was writing at the time, where she would insert herself as the protagonist of major happenings in, Reign of Terror France.
Okay, first of all, honestly, a sleigh.
Mhm. Yeah, the central thesis of the first half of this episode, which is going to focus on the historical personage of Lenormand herself, is that she is a girl boss,
Hmm.
working her way through the highest echelons of French revolutionary society, schmoozing the bourgeoisie, being an incredibly lame bourbon royalist for her entire life.
But
And
but really, but gonzo journalists could never.
mhm.
She was Gonzo well before Hunter S. Thompson was Gonzo.
This is very true.
Mm.
And even the Belgian exile portion of the Bee today is partially her time spent in Brussels, where she was arrested for what is possibly the eighth or ninth time in her life, jailed and charged with fraud, and then kicked out of the country by the very same border guards who arrested her when she was coming into the country because she had a mountain of occult literature and dozens of decks of cards and said, I'm going to go see the Emperor of Russia.
First of all, girl boss. Secondly, she kept that MF thing on her being the seventh pentacle of the sun.
It's true. She did own copies of various Keys of Solomon that were circulating in France at the time.
I feel it, I smell it, I believe it, I want
Mhm.
it to be true. If it's not true through the power of Mademoiselle Lenormand herself, I make it true via gonzo journalism, in which I insert myself into the happenings of high society.
Hmm.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, please insert yourselves into to our Gonzo efforts. Check us out into patreon.com/, the frightful howls. We added the article in the URL to torture me because I'm Serbian. Um, we have a bonus episode every month curated by and for just our patrons. We got a Discord server. We have Salt's Fantastic Almanac. Monthly live occult book club where we discuss a text of your choosing, show notes for every episode, and a whole tier for monthly group spell work from the three of us on your behalf. This month we'll be taking good advantage of that finally Jupiter and Cancer transit.
It's true.
God, the fourth pinnacle of Jupiter love to see a Jupiter and Cancer transit coming.
Very true. Been reading about this one for a decade.
Literally, we've been like, please, please, we are finally adults with our own income. We can do this.
Engrave it on silver, no problem.
No
I've
problem.
spent my entire life saving for this
Training,
moment.
training, push-ups. Yes, exactly, exactly. Been putting that like a virgin implements of art, as it were. That sounds
Mhm.
dirtier than it actually is. Been putting the engraving pen between my teeth as I scale the mountains to try and get the silver myself.
It's so fucking funny.
And yeah. And remember to give us a like, rating, and review on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you may be listening to us. Print off a picture of the podcast logo, put it on your fourth pentacle of Jupiter. Help us fight the demiurge algorithm. Bada boom, bada bing. And check out our services. Key offers personalized coaching in magic trick and mediumship, sorcery for hire, readings, customs, talismans, oils, and tools, and he'll teach you how to read Lenormand. So stay tuned. I offer bulk and five mancer readings, and Salt's books are closed, but keep an eye out for his almanac on the Patreon. And lastly, hit us up on social media. I'm at Dragon Cunning, Purple Dragon Cunning. Salt is at Salt CNC, and Key is Barnell.key.
Boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
Five booms for Meadows Lenormand. From the Costco guys would 100% get along with her.
Yeah, it's very true. And her address was number 5. You can still go there in Paris today.
I,
So
I think I think she could match anyone's vibe.
I think she could. And
Hmm.
she really made a career off of matching anyone's vibe, starting and continuing to serve the Parisian washerwomen and fishmongers and all of these people who, lived in uh, pretty abject poverty under the literal bourgeoisie,
Mm, mm,
all the way up to ambassadors, members of the court, and eventually emperors, empresses, the uh, leaders of the revolution, possibly including Robespierre himself, and navigating her way through these social dynamics with much grace and much legal difficulty, as we will come to find out.
hmm
All right, so who in the world is Mary Ann Adelaide Lenormand?
Can we can we get Marie to run the bats on her name? Figure out like what was her element?
Mhm.
No, but like that's a lot of names. Like what elements need to be remediated? is the question.
Exactly. You should definitely check that out. Not to be confused with Purple Dragon. That's Green Dragon Healer, Maria.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, apart from her four name, um
Maria's the green dragon. I'm the purple dragon. Together we're the Joker, baby.
oh shit.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I love it. I
Continue.
love it. The good energy for this episode. I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it.
Mhm.
So apart from her four name, uh Lenormand herself is a really complicated biographical figure due to the existence of numerous and often conflicting sources about her life by herself and others, which include, an extensive record of her own public and private writings, and especially among these, her own highly sensationalized accounts of life that we were talking about earlier, portraying herself as like a pivotal figure in critical events in revolutionary French society, being, a fortune teller for the bourgeoisie, the political elite at the time, the socialites. She also wrote multiple autobiographies during her life, including multi-hundred-page folios about her different arrests and the political intrigue they caused. We also have a lot of biographies that were posthumous, with 5 being written within 5 years of her death, of varying degrees of criticality and accuracy. We
Mhm.
also have a lot of contemporary legal documents and court filings and police records from the period. As we'll find out, she had a lot of difficulty with the law throughout her life, for a variety of different reasons. And there were also a lot of tabloid accounts because before anything else, she was a socialite and a dedicated one at that. She was constantly connected to political intrigue, and at the height of her popularity, was able to sway public opinion just by dropping a hint in a reading.
Why is she female Tom Dryburgh?
She is. I like these Dryburgian figures, I think.
Yeah, I'm like this. It's been a while since we did like a biography of somebody, and I'm just like, Key, is this another Pride Month special from you?
I I don't know. That's the thing. Happy Pride to all the
Yeah.
listeners out there. But
Happy Pride.
her sexuality and sex life is actually a matter of some scholarly discussion,
Hmm.
because it is believed that she never hooked up with anyone, was never in any relationships, public or private, with many of her confidants saying that she never was interested. She just
Ace
cared about the social
Queen.
stuff. Yeah. So, so yeah,
Oh my
she
God, it's finally another asexual girl boss outside of Nicki Minaj.
I never fuck.
I never fucked.
Oh my God.
Oh, fuck. Oh man.
Which she was not doing.
It's true.
Mm.
So, I really fell down a rabbit hole of trying to verify names and dates. Dug into her highly documented life. There's a lot of German scholarship on her, as well as a lot of Portuguese scholarship. So I tried to bring in as much of that as I can in the research of this that hadn't previously been translated. But really, the book that I want to shout out is A Wicked Pack of Cards, The Origins of the Occult Tarot by Ronald Decker, Terry DePaulis, and Michael Dement,
Hmm.
because this is like the source. When you're researching and you find the source,
Hmm.
this is the source.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because, they actually give a really detailed and a really critical biography of the life of Lenormand. And they're like, this is what we could support with historical evidence to a degree that we could comment on it.
Hmm.
Also an interesting book about tarot. So tarot heads in the listening audience, go check that one out.
Hmm.
So they also joke by starting the biography by trying to list her birthday and saying this is even a matter of ongoing debate. But they themselves went and checked the parish records where she was born, and we think this is 27 May 1772 in Alençon. and she died on the 25th of June in 1843 in Paris, to a gigantic funeral of the who's who of the Parisian occult world. And, her grave is still highly decorated and offered to by cartomancers to this day. More on that later. So she had a really eventful early life, and I really liked this account from J.P. Jewett's Remarkable Women of Different Nations and Ages.
Monsieur Lenormand died young, and his widow, who remarried, did not long survive her second nuptials. The second husband also soon consoled himself for his loss, and took another wife, by which event Mademoiselle Lenormand, her brother and sister, became dependent on the care of a father and a mother-in-law who, to be rid of a young family which did not belong to them, placed the daughters of the convent of Benedictine nuns in town, from whence, when they had learned all that the good sisters could teach, they were removed to that of the Visitation, and so on through all the convents of Alençon in their turn, after which the future prophetess was apprenticed to a milliner. It was in the house of the Benedictines that Mademoiselle commenced her vocation, by predicting that the superior would soon be deprived of her office, for which ill boding the young lady was subjected to punishment, and underwent a penance, but the event soon justified the prediction. She continued the career she had begun by announcing the name, age, and various other particulars respecting the successor of the deprived abbess. There were at the time many candidates for the office, and the ultimate decision remained in doubt and abeyance. Verifying at length the truth of the oracle, it confirmed the pretensions of the damsel to a supernatural power of revealing the events of futurity. But the town of Alençon was too confined a theatre for her aspiring disposition, and the needle too ennoble an instrument for one who aspired to wield the wand of prophecy. She persuaded her mother-in-law to send her to Paris, where her stepfather was then residing, and at 14 years of age, Mademoiselle Lenormand started for the metropolis, with no other worldly possessions than the clothes on her back and a piece of 6 francs in her pocket, given to her by her maternal guardian.
So, as you can hear here, she was stalked by loss in her family from a very early age, with both of her biological parents dying by the time that she was 5 years old. Her stepfather, there was actually a third wife in here, as I found out shortly before recording. And looking back at this quote, so he married, she died pretty much instantly thereafter. He remarried, and then this is the whole family situation. So that already being something ominous there, I think, But yeah, like was said, they eventually moved on to a variety of different abbeys. Legends around her life and death state that these are actually where she received a pretty extensive occult training due to the presence of manuscripts in their library. This is kind of an apocryphal account. I wasn't able to find anything in these libraries as best I could check. But if you're in France and want to go check, these are good candidates. So that said, she went to Paris at the age of 14. And after this point, there's some disagreement about what she did, as is going to be the case throughout her entire biography. But she took a job as a shopkeeper assistant, possibly with her stepfather, possibly someone her stepfather knew. But we know that during this time, she becomes the secretary to some bureaucrat in the revolutionary government, and gets a pretty extensive education in writing, calligraphy, mathematics, and most importantly to her life, social intrigue and how to climb.
How to get that bag?
Exactly. So at some point during this period, this is going to be between 1786 and 1793, as best I can find, she begins to apprentice under and possibly live with another cartomancer, a Madame Louise Gilbert, which, drama in the scholarship suggests that this is probably a relative of her deceased mother, having shared a surname, but that relationship is kind of unclear and also a matter of debate if this person existed at all. Some others have gone on to say that this is actually the ghost of her mom, which is an interpretation that I fuck with, but who knows? So this eventful apprenticeship, of course, teaches her how to read, different forms of playing cards, especially the piquet packs that were popular at the time in France. And it also leads to the first of her many arrests. This is on the 9th of May in 1794, so at the height of the Reign of Terror, for the crimes of fortune telling and counter revolutionary activities, which work.
Mhm.
None of these charges really stuck, but there is, resulting from the legend of this arrest, there's an extremely well-researched biography from 1911, Marquissette's La Célèbre Mademoiselle Lenormand, which is the source that a lot of these government documents come from, which was very helpful. So, yeah, there's some extreme fuckery about the details of her life during the revolution, multiple new and conflicting primary sources being out there. But we know that sometime between 1793 and 1797, she opened a parlor and began to take clients professionally. And you can actually still go to the building this was in, which is number 5 Rue de Tournon in Paris. So any Parisian listeners, DM me. I have a task for you.
Yeah.
And also during this time is when she began to tell very sensational tales about her life, with her time in prison being an alleged period of contact with the who's who of the royalist elite, and also, her royalist sensibilities coming through at this time, which
It's like the one really lame thing about her is that she's a royalist.
exactly.
It's a strange time to be suddenly moving in that direction as well, because it's around that time a certain Corsicans just got command over the army of the interior, right? The
Exactly.
It's like what a you know what though, Saul? I think she picked her time in the way that she picked her fights with those and with those nuns by being like, "Fuck you, I will predict the next abbess."
She also developed a fascination and possibly a close personal relationship with Josephine. So she does not
Oh,
give a fuck. She's like, I am just going to climb the social ladder. So
wait, like Josephine, like Napoleon's first wife, Josephine?
exactly the one.
Oh.
So,
one who
Wait,
wrote
Saul,
some.
hold on a second. Okay. Do we support women's rights and women's wrongs?
Um,
This is the
yes.
yes. Key, are you with
oh
us?
my god. Yeah, let's do this.
Okay,
I mean,
good.
I've got to say though, like it's believable everything you've said about her. Because I the only way I know Lenormand through is like through some very obscure like connection to Robert Cross Smith, right? So I'm not at all familiar with this. So this episode is all new to me. But like everything you're saying, and you bring up a potential friendship with Josephine, it's like that just completely tracks the woman who had the emperor under her thumb. Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Listen, like she's like, yeah, I sleep with
Mhm.
both eyes open. I got a face card on my actual card, and my actual also real face
Mhm.
card never declined.
Oh my god, it's so real. And then when the fucking Bourbon Restoration happens, she starts writing pro-royalist tracks again. So shout outs
My
to a queen,
my
literally.
contrarian queen.
going
Oh
full
man.
Gadbury.
She was just having a little fun. She was
Mhm.
just trolling.
Very,
God,
very true.
she really was born at the right time, but also born a little too early because I want to see her on like Twitter.
Mhm. I need to see her in the recent Twitter happening.
Yeah,
How-
I need to see her commenting on the Trump Musk saddest
Mhm.
gay breakup of Pride Month ever debacle, if you will.
It's so real.
JD Vance is like, stop fighting.
Fucking hell.
Please.
I cannot believe the did you say thank you today thing, but anyway. Um, so 1797 at the latest, possibly some shit was going on with her and this address in 1793 when she bought it from the previous tenant, or at least started to reside there. Uh, she began publicly offering her divination services, uh, particularly catering to Parisian laundresses at the time who frequented the area, and really catering to the at the time highly re- religiousized, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Working people, and they of course would spread the word of her fortune-telling ability to the tradespeople of the town and the maids of the bourgeois, and they themselves would eventually seek out the counsel of a Mademoiselle Lenormand in her parlor. She had a pretty meteoric rise into high society for this reason, and
Mm-hmm.
she caught a lot of attention, at least, according to herself at this time. Because, as we'll see, she was writing books about her own life. She was girl bossing it up.
Mm-hmm.
And most of her fortune, which she eventually amassed and squandered to debtors in the end, uh, was through publishing. She ran a really lucrative book selling business and also would, generate a lot of buzz with her social commentary. During this time is when she began, of course, to have correspondence with an anonymous woman, and she was brought by carriage under cover of night to a very beautiful manor in the heart of Paris, where on the 2nd of May, 1802, she divined for an anonymous woman that she was speaking with, and determined through palmistry that this was the wife of a certain cavalry commander. This was
Mm-hmm.
Josephine.
Mm-hmm.
So, recent scholarship has, of course, cast a lot of doubt on the historicity of this meeting, and many others like it, especially because a lot of letters from this alleged correspondence were demonstrated to be forgeries, which, if she herself made them, go boss.
I accept everything that is being said about her uncritically,
Mhm,
both the negative and the positive accounts.
mhm,
I think that's the only way you can approach her life. But all jokes aside, I actually do think that she is kind of like the perfect centerpiece for that convergence of qualities of magicians, right? Where you're a fortune teller and a charlatan, where you are like politically involved and you're also a complete like scoundrel and a liar and a fraud. And then at the same time, you are like engaging with spirits and having them consult you with your divination and with your magic, whatever it is that you're doing. Like I know you were saying earlier, she did have grimoires in her possession, but at the same time, she's like a consummate liar. I
mhm,
think that like she's really at that like trickster crossroads,
mhm.
if you will.
Exactly, yeah. She did whatever it took to advance her own social standing, and using deception, lies, and literal sorcery all along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which go boss.
Mm-hmm.
So, regardless of the historicity of these events, and also specifically because of these forged letters that happened to, leak out to the relevant gossip columns and parlor magazines of the period, it was certainly widely believed
Mm-hmm.
that she was doing these divinations and becoming the confidant of the who's who of French society.
Mm-hmm.
And this was also reinforced because Josephine had a very specific penchant for the esoteric. You could get an audience with her by bringing like weird magical shit. Um,
Mm-hmm.
she also published a couple books, one in 1820 and one in 1827. So it's jumping forward a little bit. But she wrote hundreds and hundreds of pages of alleged conversations and divinations and encounters with Josephine as her personal diviner and confidant.
Mm-hmm.
And these only continued to cement and further her rise in society. So she was propelled further and further into the spotlight, especially and intentionally creating scandal and intrigue and political happenings, if you will. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and She hyperstitioned her clientele into being. Notable people in the government started to seek her out.
Hyperstition them. Massive.
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 Oh, it's been a hot second since we had a Nick Land reference. Oh my goodness.
If not a chaos magician, she's a very chaotic one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again,
Peter Carroll never. But anyway, sorry, continue.
These fucking royalists.
Yes, that's why I brought him up. Anyway, yes, continue. Sorry.
Oh man. So she cast the hyper sigil, the guillotining of all of these figures, feeding it Full Metal Alchemist style. And she drew an even more influential clientele and was placed into contact with even more influential people, and as a result, conflict with the revolutionary governments. There are some arrest records from 1808 that were suggesting that the line of carriages outside of her parlor would block off the entire street and surround the block. And the denizens of these carriages happen to be esteemed politicians, ambassadors to France. Most notably, the ambassador of Austria to France at the time was a huge client of her, and there is like actual proof of that happening.
Wow.
So she gets arrested a lot because of this, on various charges, primary among them fortune telling, because it was illegal, fraud, financial scheming, and also disturbing the peace, public disturbances, all this other bullshit. So she was definitely jailed and fined in 1802, 1803, 1809, 1820 maybe, and also definitely 1821. So she was getting it on. And each one just made her more famous. She got like Streisand affected to the highest degree of any human being to ever live. So her 1809 arrest especially created a massive scandal, social, political. It was all the rage. And because the police at the time of her arrest were like, she is the confidant of literally everyone in the court at this point. So they said, do you read cards? At which she gave them like a like Kaiser Soze style story for like hours and hours of just anecdotes and like lore and just random bullshit. And after that point, the police kind of left her alone for the most part. So she then proceeds to write a 600-page long book about the events of this arrest, which cements her legacy, like hands down. And she just kind of moves on from there and begins to write more and more about her, entire life, the happenings of the day, but also her divinatory techniques and some cataloging of some of the esoteric and occult literature that she is in possession of, primarily to support her book selling business. So, go boss.
She was fighting the demiurge of the algorithm.
She was. So she names, just to get into her as more of a magician, some of the books that she had in her possession, as were noted by the people raiding her parlor. She had a copy of Luca Garrico's Blazing Mirror, which, as far as I can tell, is a variation of Zoroaster's telescope.
Hell yes, Zoroaster's telescope mentioned.
Which, shout outs.
Need to do an episode on that one.
Yeah, we definitely do. And we should definitely talk Luca Garrico for being the astrologer to multiple popes and being the one who elected the laying of cornerstones for buildings in Vatican City.
Yes.
Some good shit. So other than this, there's the Kabbalah of the 99th of Zoroaster, which is also a Zoroaster's telescope, as far as I could tell. She also had a copy of the Grand Grimoire. She had various different circulating editions of Keys of Solomon. She was in possession of Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy, and she had a really cool dream interpretation manual called A Treatise on Dreams According to Joseph. So she had some good shit. She was really well resourced and very, critically in dialogue with the French occult scene at the time, possibly being a real member of and possibly being a fake member of multiple British and French esoteric orders and secret societies for the circulation of this literature, which I think, adds a cool detail to her life. And if it wasn't true, it was certainly believed. So also in her possession, her primary divinatory tool was actually Zoroaster's telescope in a lot of her writings, but beyond just playing cards. She also had what she would call 33 Greek sticks, in which on like a triangular table, she would throw 33 lots 7 different times and like eliminate the lots from them based on the ones that the Agamemnon stick was touching.
Okay.
Which is base.
Yes.
So, and then the remaining ones at the end would be interpreted, which is based. I liked it. She was also, notable for her palmistry and astrology, as was mentioned earlier. She only mentioned reading tarot and, specifically like Marseille and stuff like that, far later in her life. When it was becoming the popular divinatory tool and when it would sell well to talk about tarot. But at the time, she would specifically read French-suited Piquet packs. So these are 32 card decks, 7 through ace. And she would read them, as she later described, by shuffling and cutting the deck 3 times, dealing the cards into 8 different piles, and then sequentially flipping over cards to progress the reading and, give more information in sequence and moving on to different piles as different questions arose or as she felt the need to. So I thought this was pretty cool and, immediately rang some bells of like Jose Leotao's Cyprianic cartomancy stuff. And, other Iberian and like Spanish specifically forms of playing card divination. She also had some other good tech. She was notable for like scrying into egg whites. So she would just like crack an egg onto a plate and interpret what showed up. She mentioned as well having a penchant for scrying into a basin of water in which she macerated bay leaves, verbena leaves, and added salt at the end to season it.
Gotta make your own scryer's milk.
And then just for you, Sminga, she was also a noted enjoyer of lead and wax sporing divination.
Yay! Multivimancy. I love lead and wax pouring. At everyone listening to this, I use tin. I actually don't use proper lead, but I do use wax and tin. Yeah, but it's something I grew up with.
Hell yeah. Yeah, she even was such a fan that she would note that in her kind of magician kit that she would bring when traveling was always 9 grams of lead and 7 sticks of wax. So boom, boom, boom.
Boom. Gotta have that spoon on you, right, for melting it.
Very true. So during this period, as she's melting lead and looking at egg whites and throwing cards for the poorest of the poor to the richest of the rich, and seeing anyone who came through her door, and also hardcore supporting the fucking Bourbon regime, she decides single-mindedly and wholeheartedly that she is like, I must be present at the Congress of Aix-la-Chapelle in Aachen to determine the fate of France. So she sets out on this legendary, voyage to Germany and is immediately detained by Belgian customs for having a bunch of weird occult shit with her, which delays her arrival significantly. And there's a lot of like weird German scholarship that claims as well that she was like arrested again at this time, like tried unsuccessfully for witchcraft. I haven't been able to find this anywhere else other than like very particular German sources, so I don't know. But she arrives at the conference and is like, Alexander the First, I must read for you. And allegedly gives him a reading about the future of France,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty hype. So she establishes a pretty international presence as a fortune teller who is extremely politically connected in France, and goes after this conference to Brussels to hang out for a little while, open another arm of her book selling business, schmooze high society. And she is, of course, arrested again by the Belgian police this time and fined for fraud in 1821. At which point she is kicked out of Belgium and returns to Paris.
Such a controversial drama queen, if you
Mm-hmm.
will.
Exactly, yeah. And she's using each of these arrests to her fame and fortune.
No
Um,
such thing as bad publicity, right?
exactly. And her own manuscripts about these arrests and her treatments and kind of the intrigue and scandal that she causes by leaking political information to the police and, the police leaking political information to her. Each of these becomes a bestseller. And she wrote various travel guides to Belgium that became pretty popular and made her a lot of money, which I think is kind of hilarious, but I love.
Mm-hmm.
And so she returns to Paris, begins to devote most of her time to writing, publishing, and running her bookstores, and sunsets her divinatory services for anyone other than friends and family by 1830, really. And she, runs a book selling business, never quite returns to the height of her popularity after her 1820 arrest. And the publication of the account in 1820 of her arrest in 1809. But she lives out her life in relative comfort and having multiple addresses around Paris, and dies on the 25th of June in 1843, um, and is now buried in Division 3 of Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris. So, Parisian listeners, I message me.
We gotta have it.
Mhm. So, her funeral is also widely covered because, of course, the who's who of the divinatory world is at that funeral, and as well as a lot of high society people to whom she actually became the confidant. And this kicked off her legacy again. And within a couple years of her death, she was being biographed multiple times, as mentioned, and also decks of cards began to pop up around Paris that were named for her. These are very different than the cards we know and love as Lenormand cards today, but are still being sold under the name Grand Jeu de Mademoiselle Lenormand, which is a 54 card, standard playing card deck. And these cards look wild. I encourage everyone to look up some images, and I'll include some in the show notes as well. But they have scenes from Greek mythology, they have constellations, they have geomantic figures, they have Hebrew letters, they have Greek letters, they have talismanic figures, they have a plant, they have a person, they have a color, they have a season, and all these other esoteric images that are kind of Jackson Pollocked onto the cards.
Mm-hmm.
They just said, fuck it, put the correspondence on there. You'll figure it out with your spirits, which I like as a divinatory maximalist.
I
and
love a good divinatory maximalism.
mhm. And these cards also came with 5 short, like little white books, essentially, on different esoteric subjects and other forms of divination. So one of them talked about astrology, one palmistry, one cartomancy, one dream interpretation, all that good type of stuff. But the instructions in these decks helped codify the use of various techniques that we see in Lenormand today. Using the man and woman as a significating the querent and techniques like that, the different spreads that are still very popular. Um, and these cards are still in print by various publishers in France and especially Germany. And you can get them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the primary deck that we all know and love, though, as the Lenormand deck is the Petite Lenormand. This is, for those unfamiliar, 36 cards based off of the playing card decks that were popular in Germany, especially at the time, which were 36 cards, 6 through ace. As and these were, already going around, already being used for divination just as normal playing cards. But the images on the cards and in the order that we know them today, so rider, clover, ship, etc., all the way to the anchor and the cross, were published by a German board game manufacturer as a board game.
Oh, hell yes.
So the homie Johann Kaspar Herschel, who was a copper factory owner turned board game designer, which I think is a very German career arc.
It is.
And so he published a bunch of different decks of cards and games, but he published this deck specifically as a board game called Das Spiel der Hoffnung. So the game of hope in 1799 or 1800. So while Lenormand herself was alive, but it is thought that she never even knew these existed, which word.
Mm-hmm.
So this game is actually kind of fun sounding, so I just wanted to throw that in there, especially because there were some rules that were published by the Deutsches Spielkartenmuseum.
Yeah.
So there's a really good book as well that talks a lot about playing card divination in general and the history of it. So Versagkarten, ein Beitrag zur Geschichte des Okkultismus, which, for the German speakers in the chat, check that out. But you lay out the cards in a 6x6 grid, and players would buy into a pot, and then you would roll 2d6 to advance like a coin or a chip or something along the grid. Object of the game is to land on anchor, which is card 35, which would allow you to take the whole pot. If you land on the coffin or the cross, so 8 and 36, you would get stuck until you roll doubles. If you overshot, it would, Senate style, you would have to go backwards that number of spaces.
I love Senate.
Hell yeah. Such a good game. And variations of this deck, not so much the game itself, but the deck remain really popular in Germany and Belgium, Luxembourg, and especially the Netherlands, and also in Brazil, where this is widely known and used as baralho cigano. So more on that in a bit. But this is also, the Blaue Eule, so the Blue Owl Lenormand, is the most common one that you'll find being used in the States, because you can get it from Bezos for like $10. But yeah, so that is the history of Lenormand and the deck we'll be talking about today. Boom, 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 boom.
I love it. Thank you for doing all this research, Key.
Yeah, absolutely. Just fell down the rabbit hole with this because I'm like, who is this person? And then I'm like, oh, she actually led a really fantastic life as a magician, and now, informs the way that she is worked as a spirit.
Yeah, legit. Very freaking cool.
So after all that, and with her spirit invoked, art and practice of reading Lenormand, right? The meat of the episode. One of the sources that I wanted to shout out right away is Caitlin Matthews' The Complete Lenormand Oracle, because it is crazy detailed.
I think that's the first one I ever bought on Lenormand.
Yeah, it's like a thick book too. Like I think the ebook version is over 700 pages. But beautifully illustrated, has homework as well, which I fuck with for any thing that's trying to teach you something. So she'll actually be like, here, interpret these 20 pairings of cards. There is an answer key on what I think the interpretations are in the back. You can also disagree with me, which I fuck with as an author because it invites dialogue with the text itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and she, I think, is one of the main people who has published in English that describes the language of Lenormand in a way that I really like, because all of Lenormand is, as she puts it, building sentences with pairs and triplets. Um, when you read with Lenormand cards, one of the really nice parts about the system, and also one of the parts that is a requires some practice of getting good at as a diviner, is there is a story in front of you. You have to tell the story of those cards.
Hmm.
When certain things come down where it's like, hey, what are my finances going to look like? And suddenly it's like weird answers. It's like, a heart and a fox. It's like your spouse is being weird with you about money. You might want to talk to them and see what the fuck's going on there. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it's just like a story is told right away. Um, which and kind of informing that Lenormand cards generally read in pairs and triplets. You can, in some circumstances that we'll talk about, you read more, but um, the pairs are frequently going to be read as like subject and modifier. So first card that comes down, it's like X subject, and then the second card that comes down is that does Y or is flavored by Y.
Hmm.
And that order is one that I actually really like. And if anyone is interested in learning this, one of the first things beyond just memorizing correspondences, like just a keyword meaning for each of the cards, because they're not actually that complicated. It's more of like an oracle deck thing. You can, of course, read into them and develop correspondence for yourself. And like each card that comes out in a reading for me, I'm like, okay, this I have a working associated with this. I have an herb. I have a spirit that I should talk to about the result. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But that just builds with time and practice and doing hundreds of readings. So, um, for anyone interested beyond just learning a meaning of like one card and how they interact, is pull pairs and be like, what is the story in the order that I pulled it? What is the story if I reverse the order? It allows for a lot of nuance of the same two cards. So, for example, if you pull out the heart and the cross, you're like, oh, this person is a very devoted lover. They're feeling like a very loyal to their partner. They're feeling very stable in their romance, that type of thing, because it's the heart that is stable or the heart that is devoted in this configuration. Whereas if they're flipped, it's like, okay, this person has like a very vibrant faith. They're probably becoming more active in their spiritual life, their religion. They're becoming more devoted to a cause. They're throwing themselves into something. So you can pull out all these different meanings, just based on orientation, stuff like that. Beyond that, um, simplest way that you can read these cards is just a 3-card spread, which is a very common way of reading still. And of course, these 3 cards can tell a really big story because you read the triplets as, you could be like, okay, subject matter of the reading is the middle card. It is informed by these circumstances that happened on the left, and we are going in the direction of the right. You also read the first pair, the last pair, and the outside pair for like additional context, additional story to tell. Um, and it fills everything in, flavors the reading, and you can go pretty deep with it pretty quick, especially as you start to pull spirits into it and they fill in the gaps. It's like, okay, why am I suddenly talking about this other, weird situation? If like the rider came up, I'm like, why do I know that this person rides a motorcycle and they should not get on the highway today? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, so there's a lot of spirit informed depth that comes in from the very beginning as well. And in the progression, the pulling out a pair of cards or doing a spread of 3 cards, of course, evolves into 5. You can do, lines of 5 cards. You can do a cross of 5 cards, which I buck with and is one of the main ways that I read because I'm very Dutch in the way that I read and I read in crosses. um,
Exodia.
exactly. So, the 5-card cross is also where we can introduce one of the main features of Lenormand that is like, to me, a Lenormand specific vocabulary. when compared to like tarot or playing cards or something like that, which is you go into the deck and you select a card that talks about the subject matter or talks about the problem or represents the querent in front of you. And you put that card on the table and you're like, you are the querent or you are the situation. You talk to it and you pull the, for lack of a better term, you pull the energy of the person, you put their question into the card, you start talking to your spirits, you show them the card, and you're like, this is the subject matter. And you essentially are consecrating the card as a talismanic image for the situation. And then throwing other cards around it and being like, what is this talismanic image of the problem at hand affecting my deck and doing and, causing the cards to talk to each other? Things like this. And of course, this gives a fuck ton of information, as you can imagine. Reading into, what is fated, what is, or like outside the control of the person, what is in their control, what do they have agency over, where are we coming from, where are we going, all that type of stuff. So this also can get really interesting, especially when you're combining it with other oracles. It's automatically patroned by the Polvo Cigano and other systems that work with kind of like the quote unquote gypsy oracles and like card divination, stuff like that. Of course, adapted in spiritist systems and coming into contact with Afro diasporic traditions, you can get pretty funky and do some really interesting things with it and mix it around with other divination systems. But that's definitely for another time and place in a more private environment.
Yeah.
But needless to say, with just those 5 cards, you can give a person a 20-minute reading. And you can figure out anything you need to figure out. And going into more depth, larger crosses evolve from there. Again, joking on myself because I am Dutch and read in a very Dutch way. I almost always will read for clients in a cross of 9 or 13. So it's 4 pairs that tell the entire story of the reading if I needed to. Significator is going to be in the middle. Before the person asks any question, I'm probably going to pull out a card that is them, the man or the woman or whatever they're feeling that day. Put that down and be like, okay, here's the picture of what's going on with you. Here's what's happening in your life, and here's a direction that we need to go to it, or here's a recommendation, or here's just some stuff that we can pull out. And hopefully this answers the question before they ask it. And just interpreting all these different things, you can do a lot of other stuff that becomes very magical very quickly. It is a very European and specifically very Dutch way to read, as you will see in infinite forums about this on the internet, where people will do a big cross of 9 and they'll put cards in the diagonals and be like, these are the transitions between the different pairs, which I actually are the main way that I will figure out what workings to do and like what magic to throw at a situation if it's required. Because I'm just going to do what is already causing the transition in the direction that we want it to go, or I will do the opposite of what that card is. But you'll see people pull like a 14th card and put it on top of the significator, treat it as like the answer or the flavor of the entire reading. I personally don't do this, but you will see it done a lot. And reading grids is popular. 3x3, of course, is the shit. And just to mention this last technique because it's also famously Lenormand pilled, is the Grand Tableau, which is you do a reading with the entire deck. You lay out all 36 cards. Usually this is in 4 rows of 9 cards. Sometimes you'll see it in 4 rows of 8 with an extra 4 on the bottom, which are interpreted differently. But you pair, since each card is numbered, you pair the card with the place that it falls in. So whatever comes down first is immediately going to be paired with the rider. Whatever comes down second, the clover, all the way through the deck. And so you have 36 pairs that will speak on any subject matter specifically. And you also have a space dedicated to the querent, and then you also have the card dedicated to the querent, and you can tell a whole picture of their life that way.
Yeah.
Some people do this for literally every client reading, and I think that's crazy. No disrespect, but how you do that, I don't know. Please tell me if you have a good way to do that within an hour. But for me, I generally will only do one of these for myself a year. Like it's become a New Year's Eve thing for me that I'll throw one. I'll take a picture of it and then I'll interpret it for like the next 3 weeks.
Right.
Because I'm like, this is the entire year ahead. It talks about everything.
Yeah.
And then same if I do it for another person, whenever I do it for them, I will probably not do one for an entire year after that. So yeah, it's some good stuff. A lot of room for innovation, a lot of room to interpret things in different ways. Um, you can pull out pretty much anything out of that tableau, but really I find it to be a fast way of consulting with clients and things like that. If you've had a reading with me, you've seen how this goes, but really it's like, okay, I'll throw the cards out, be like, here's a problem. Let's talk about it. Here's the solution that's recommended. Here's a spell you can do if required. Here's a lifestyle change you can make if required. Here's a thing you can do to avert something coming your way, or whatever it ends up being. So all to say, this is my preferred divination system, especially when doing client work or when reading for other people at the moment. And it's one that I have really fallen in love with, and fallen in love with its patron spirits. And not least among them, Mademoiselle Lenormand herself. So boom, boom, boom.
Wow. Thank you, Key. That was fucking baller. Like you really fucking crushed every aspect of that, including the biography, the actual practical application. That was great.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, this is a fun episode. And with any of this stuff, I can muse on Lenormand infinitely. So as mentioned, if people are like interested in picking up the system, I'm around. Feel free to, book in the usual places if you want, like an hour of dedicated, like, okay, here is how I would learn the system if I was starting from scratch. We can talk about it. We can do different things, different exercises, just practice back and forth. Or, if you are in the Patreon Discord, at me if you have a question. I love to talk Lenormand.
And I want to plug for you that people can always hire you to have personalized coaching, as you mentioned. So I think that it's something that's I think if people are really looking to get into Lenormand would be really helpful to have like a one-on-one because then obviously there's excellent books that teach you too, but like having someone like a live evaluate is really invaluable.
Absolutely, yeah. It's always fun, especially when you're kind of divining back and forth, and you can be like, okay, look at here's the intuition that says look at this thing in this different way, and you can kind of co-interpret and become more and more refined in the understanding of what is actually shaking out of the divination. And
Totally.
No, thank you. I love this episode, man.
Yeah. Seriously, good work.
Thank you, thank you. But yeah, it's a fun one. Like I said, I love this system, and love the spirits that show up as soon as you start shuffling the cards. So it is some good stuff, and of course the traditions that have evolved out of the system are myriad, diverse, and still very much so alive. There are very active forums in Dutch, German, English, Portuguese, like whatever you speak, you will find someone to talk to about this. And It's good. I love it. More people read it. Please, talk to me about
Please.
it. Oh man. But yeah, that's Lenormand.
I have indeed browsed many a Serbian language Lenormand forum, actually.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love it.
There's some hot debates. I mean, much like
Hmm.
there are for beans, there are some very hot debates. And I've read some Serbian books on Lenormand. It's good. It's good
Hmm.
stuff.
Yeah, it's really wonderful to see people get into some shit over like what is this combination of cards and how do you read it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Much like any tarot forum, it is vibrant.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
say the least.
Yeah, yeah, to say the least, for sure.
Mhm. But yeah, it's always fun, and it's quick to pick up, honestly, because like one of the virtues of the system is it's not open. It's open to infinite interpretation in its pairs, but the cards have like pretty specific meanings, obviously, that will evolve and personalize with time. But like just cutting the deck randomly, like pulling out the mountain, it's like, okay, you're gonna have some impediments in life, things are gonna slow down, it's gonna get a little weird, times in front of you is something that you want, it's gonna be blocked. Or garden, it's like, okay, your whatever affairs you have going on right now,
Hmm.
um in like the broad sense, just like whatever's happening in your life, could stand to be a little more public, or they will go public, or you are being watched.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um so like that child, it's like either heal your inner child or a literal physical child is going to do some shit for you.
Hmm.
House, your house, it's stuff like that. It's just very straightforward, and there's like, I think even on the different Wikipedia pages, there's like a table of just like keywords. And
Yes.
for people who do playing card divination, like a lot, you can get really esoteric and really deep with like the playing card correspondence that's on each card. Um,
Hmm.
which I love knowing the history of it now, that it was just kind of like arbitrary because a German board game maker was like, let me do it this way.
Literally, yeah. And also, again, that goes into the relationship between divination and play.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like like with even in these systems like Baralesgano, like when you use it, it's jogo.
Yeah,
It's
it's a jogo, it's a
mhm.
game. But also I think that it even just goes to like how so many cartomancy styles started off as like betting, like just like standard like gambling decks that
Mhm.
then became a way to divine as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it because like that's still all there in the spirits that patron it. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
there, when you read, at least for me, when I read cards, there's a certain levity to it that is absent in other systems. It can be very social. It can be very like, I'm at a party and I'm telling a fortune. It's very like, I'm in the parlor.
Oh, I'm in the
The
parlor.
parlor reading for the bourgeois socialites who I'm going to support, and then support their adversary, and then support the restoration, because we out here
Stay
sliming.
stay 3 steps ahead.
Oh man. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun, it's good. I still, even with the cards that I divine with, sometimes I'll pull them out and like play fucking the card game that they're intended to be played with, you know.
Do
Even
you
hmm?
go ahead?
Even invite the spirits in.
Mm-hmm.
Just be like, here you go. Here's a hand.
Now, do you change your decks like when you've gone through a process of dividing for a lot of people? Do you eventually like open a brand new pack like people do with cartomancy, like with playing cards, or do you keep the same deck and cleanse it every time?
Um, I've gone back and forth with the Lenormand ones. The thing with the Blue Owl deck specifically is the lamination on them. After about a year of using it, will get like really funky and kind of like sticky.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that for like longer term decks that I keep around, I usually replace it at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But or if I do a tableau at New Year's, I can get a new deck, and then the first reading I do with it is that, and then I read for it, or read with that deck for a year, because that the energy of that year is captured in that deck now. and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
then I replace it, the next time and go from there. If it's something like if a really whack situation happens to you, like if someone comes to me is like, "Am I cursed?" and the answer is yes, I'll replace the deck after that because I don't want to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's I go back and forth, and have different decks for different things.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the answer is both. But yeah.
Yeah, if it's a really nice deck, like I will go all out to make sure I cleanse it
Mhm.
in some ways, but then like so it's like a one of those expensive ones. But if it's like a $2 gas station playing card deck, obviously like I'll exchange that.
Yeah, totally.
I think Lenormand is like it's cheap in some places and it's kind of in that like $10 to $20 range in others. So you don't always want to be replacing it, but at the same time, like sometimes you have to.
Yeah, totally. And it's also one of those things where if you're like taking clients, I'm like, okay, I'll get one extra reading that month, and then I'll use that reading to buy all the candles, incense, and decks that I'm going to use for the next like however long. Yeah,
Hmm.
that type of shtick.
Hmm.
But I just like that it has owls on it, honestly.
Man, I just like owls.
It's true.
And that's a very valid reason to like it.
Hmm.
Well, excellent work. This was super fun.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing the research for this. I was, laughing at my desk at different points in the biography. Yeah, definitely go check out A Wicked Pack of Cards, The Origins of the Occult Tarot.
Hmm.
Fun read. Just good
Yeah.
writing style.
And what you shared about like the significators is really interesting to me because it's like, oh, like that that's why people took it out.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. And yeah, it's really, really interesting to see how that, kind of kicks off and be from like a particular place and being like, oh, here's, the image. Um, and then also how that has evolved in modern practice,
Mm,
where a lot of um, Lenormand decks, especially that are being sold in like the States now, will include a second set of significator cards so that you can read for people who are um, in like homosexual relationships. Um, or, like sometimes you sub out the man and put in a woman if you're reading for a lesbian, stuff like that. Very traditionally, you can use. I've always laughed at this and really like it, but I've seen this over and over again, which is for if it's a man asking about love with a man, you use the writer as the partner.
mm.
And if it's a woman asking about love or sexuality with a woman, you use the bear as the significator. Which I've always thought was hilarious and thought maybe I should switch them.
Mm,
but is what it is.
mm.
uh, but it's goofy. I love it. You'll also get in a mad fucking beef on the internet over what the bear and what the lily and to a lesser extent what the book means,
Mm,
what the stork means, stuff like that. Um it's fun. It's alive, it's vibrant, and I fuck with
mm.
it.
Fuck yeah.
So go read Lenormand, and if you're in Paris, go to that cemetery and say hello.
Indeed, indeed. Send us a little bit of the fucking dirt, please.
Hmm. Hmm.
Just a pinch.
Tiny little bit.
Just a little bit. I'm just a little guy. I just want a little bit of Memphis Leonardman's grave dirt.
Hmm. I'm just a little guy, said Josephine about her husband. Anyway,
Stop. Oh no. Well, speaking of which, my Kosh record is Oh No by Big Pig.
fuck yeah.
Hmm. I think she would have liked Big Pig. Mendes Letterman.
I think so too.
Hmm.
I think that's definitely what she thought about the cops that kept, breaking into her studio.
Yeah, yeah,
That also reminds me is there was this one fucking account from the time that she was alive
yeah.
that I thought was insane. Like it was completely unhinged. Um, because she was frequently described as like pretty conventionally beautiful
Hmm.
and like, you know, a socialite who was kind of tapped into that world at the time. Um, this one motherfucker who was like, I went into her studio. I was pulled behind a false panel in the wall into a room that had bats nailed by their wings covering the entire walls.
Hmm.
And I was like, base?
Hmm.
But he was like, he described her, I think, as a corpulent toad with one eye that could not see and one eye that could see everything.
Okay, first of all, she was just shapeshifting. She was in
Mm-hmm.
the middle of skin turning.
It's
Let her
true.
have a break.
It's very true. And it was so fucking funny too, because he's like, I did not believe a single word of what was told to me. All of it came to pass. I still do not believe it. I'm like, fuck you, dude. But it was in one of the biographies, and I just got hung up on it because I'm like, who is this a singular motherfucker?
He's salty.
Mm-hmm.
He's salty that it came to pass.
It's true.
Bitches love getting a reading. They hate when it comes to pass, though.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Hmm.
Very, very true. Oh man.
Well, what's your Akash record?
My Akashic record for today is Rodrigo Ciampi's Osigana,
Yay.
which fantastic.
Hmm.
And we even have a rare salt Akashic record today.
That we do, that we do. It's Corblund's The Card Players.
Hmm.
Hell yeah. Love me some card playing.
Hmm.
Damn straight. Damn straight.
You may
Oh
have
yeah.
been quiet this episode, but you made up for it with the but you still gave us a record.
Yeah, sorry folks, I've got a bit of a cough, so I'm trying not to make the editing too rough for
He's
smoother and
he's
clean.
he's like the lifeline of the mute button right now.
Genuinely, yeah.
All good, I hope you feel better soon.
Hmm.
And the license to depart is actually from the Book of Saint Cyprian, just the Sorcerer's Treasure, O Grande Livro de São Cipriano, Tesoro do Feiticeiro. This is
Hmm.
from Jose Leitão's translation, and it is the responsory of Saint Cyprian to do before you divine with cards.
O my most beloved Lord, thou who art the God of the universe, allow that these cards tell me what I wish to know, for, Lord, I have no one else to whom I may ask. The Lord be with me and aid me and save me. Holiest Mary, my mother, save me by intervention of thy beloved Son, my Lord, whom I love with the most vivid faith, with all my heart and body and soul and life. Cards, thou shalt not fail me. This by the blood of our Lord Jesus Christ shed. Amen.
Actually, include the
uh,
clip of the song saying
yeah,
that,
please do.
cutting it off at I never fucked Drake. Okay, okay, good.